I'll ask my colleague to go live and I'll start recording now. Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to the local pension board meeting. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair for 22-23. Could I take nominations, please?
I'd like to nominate Ian Guy. I think Ian Guy has done an excellent job as chair previously, and I think his knowledge on pensions is better than all of us put together. So I'd like to nominate Ian Guy.
Okay, could I have a seconder, please?
And second that.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations? No, all in favour?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we are. That's great. Thank you very much. So, Ian, if you could take the chair. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words, David, and for the rest of the board for having faith in me. And I just hope I'll be able to live up to the faith you put in me. Good morning to everyone, and a special welcome to those members of the board whose first meeting it is. I think you'll find this a very friendly, relaxed board. We get through the work we have to get through while not standing on ceremony. So I've got one screen, so if I don't see you indicating to speak, please feel free to ask questions, interrupt me at any time if you want to speak. So welcome and thank you all very much. I am going to have to ask for your indulgence while I slip between screens, and we've got a particularly report-heavy meeting today. So I'm going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is nominations for vice chair. And I think, as Jeff indicated, that's got to come from the employer side of the board. Do I have any nominations, please? Failing nominations, I'm very happy for people to nominate themselves if anyone thinks that's something they'd be interested in doing.
Can I just suggest that myself and Councillor Noyle are both brand new to the committee, so it might be worth considering the other representative who isn't here today. I'm not giving her a hospital pass by any means, but it's just she's been part of the committee previously, may well, have more knowledge and would be better placed to replace you as chair temporarily if you couldn't attend a meeting or something, than Simon or myself, who, to put it politely, probably don't know bugger all about the topic.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. And Rosemary is nominated from the union side. I think it was Rosemary you were referring to. And although we don't really, in practice, divide up as a board into sides, we've always worked as a whole, I've found. The nomination would have to come from the employer side. The other option would be to defer it to the next meeting, so that perhaps people could have a first meeting under their belt. I think what's really required is just sharing, rather than any particular knowledge of the board itself or pensions, because we've got some very helpful officers who are not only approachable but very knowledgeable and will steer. They've steered me through stormy waters, and I'm confident they do the same with the vice chair. I can only see 3 videos at the moment. So I can't see Caroline or Councillor Simon. So if you do want to say anything, you're going to have to speak up because you haven't got your cameras on at the moment.
Chair Caroline is doing the live feed, so she won't be able to, she can't speak anyway, so sorry.
Right, okay. It's just Councillor Noyle I can't. And now I can. Welcome, Councillor Noyle, again.
Apologies, I'm busy working, or I was busy working, so I was trying to listen in then.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Look, just to reiterate what I said, if you do want to speak up. With this single screen, it's no good people waving at me because I might be on looking at the reports. Unless anybody wants to say anything else, then can I suggest we defer the appointment of a vice chair? Jeff.
Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth, Chairman. I was going to suggest that we defer the appointment of the vice chair to the next meeting. Strictly speaking, Chairman, it doesn't have to be from the employer's side. It's the appointment of the vice chair, which is, you know, a deputy type role.
I was going to suggest that because, my understanding, I was like vice chair. I got a bit confused then because I'm sure I was vice chair under Ian. So when you said I had to be an employer, I was like,
yeah.
So how come I was vice chair under Ian? But if an employer wants to come forward, I'm happy, like you say, to accept that. And I agree with Ian and I agree with yourself that we should defer to next meeting. Sorry, just to step in place. And if anybody wants me to carry on as vice chair until the next meeting, just in case anything else needs to be done in the meantime, I'm happy to do that with everybody's approval. Until the next meeting, just in case something needs to be discussed and he's not available or anything like that. I'm happy to carry on that role until the next meeting.
I think it would be useful to have someone able to act just in case anything happened to the chair. I'd be very happy to nominate David as for the position of vice chair if there would be a seconder to that.
Yes, I'll happily second that.
Yeah, I think both of you were seconding at once. So we'll take that as seconded. I think Councillor Noyle I saw first. Yeah, so those four, and taking everyone is for as I saw you nominating, and nobody against or abstaining. Have you got enough there, Jeremy?
Yeah, so so David is vice chair for the municipal year.
I'm happy to do it until the next meeting and get it confirmed. In case the suggestion from the employee is happy to step in. So I'm happy to do it until the next meeting, and then we can take it from there. And then next meeting we can decide whether I continue or we can decide whether the representative from the employee. I do think it's nice to have, like, an employee and a member of staff. Yeah. I think it's a good yin and yang. But I'm happy to do it to the next meeting, and if it's decided to actually carry on next meeting, then I'm happy to carry on.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, David. I mean, it would be, it will have to be an employer side chair for the next municipal year, so it might be good experience as well for developing a chair for next year. So next item on the agenda, as I zip between, our apologies for absence. Jeremy,
no apologies received, Chair.
And I don't know if any members have brought apologies from colleagues. I see shaking of heads, no. I've not any. Disclosure of interests. And I think, Jeremy, there's a form.
Yes, circulated the form.
Our declarations, which you've sent out this morning.
Yes.
I've got to declare an interest in the agenda as a whole because I am a member of the Swansea LGPS scheme.
I like to declare an interest as well, the same as Ian. I'm a member of the pension as well.
Can I just declare the same interest? I'm a member of the scheme as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And myself as well, I think, yes.
Splendid.
Okay, and officers as well. Ian, I declare as well as a member of the fund.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would as well, as member of the fund. I'm a member of the fund.
Chairman, likewise, I'm a member of the fund as well.
Splendid. Well, we all have skin in the game, as they say. And I'm sure Jeremy will remind you if he doesn't receive a completed form from you later on today. The minutes, which were circulated separately, and I hope everyone's had a copy of them. Again, I'm not going to be able to see any waving of hands, but does everybody have a copy of the minutes available to them? Thank you. Sorry, David, I saw some movement there.
No, we're going to have to confirm it. No, confirm I got a copy of the minutes at all.
Fine. I'm going over to the minutes screen now. So perhaps if we could go through them for accuracy for those who were present. I wasn't, so I think that's only you, David. So for accuracy and for matters arising as we go on page 1. If you call out if there's anything on page 2 and page 3 and page 4. I didn't hear any indications of any matters arising, so could somebody propose them as a true record? I don't think anybody was present, but I'm confident that the
Chair, there was Councillor Alan Lockyer, Councillor Peter Jones, and Rosemary at the last meeting. So I suppose that's all you can do is note the minutes, and that's sufficient then.
Yes, I'm happy to.
Okay.
I've got faith in the minute taking capabilities and accuracy of the committee staff. So I'm happy to sign them as a true record. And the next item on the agenda is the report of Audit Wales. We've got the report elsewhere in our documents. Jeff, do you want to introduce the report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The Local Pension Board will be used to receiving this report on an annual basis. Audit Wales were invited to present the report. However, they politely declined that invitation to come and personally present it. However, as you can see, it starts on page 1 of your pack, and it's quite a short report in terms of it sets out their work plan and how they intend to undertake their statutorily required audit of the pension funds financial statements, which have already been produced, and next item on the agenda is a draft copy of those financial statements, and they are due to commence audit of those financial statements in the coming weeks, with a view to reporting back to committee and yourselves sometime in the autumn. As they're keen to highlight, they want to communicate to the committee and yourselves, the board, the scope of their audit and what their audit work undertakes and the type of things that they're looking at. And as you see on page 5 of your pack, they're looking at these key audit risks, risk of management override, and valuations of private market investments identified on that page. And then on the following page identifies the audit fee they're going to charge, and then their prospective team and timetable and resourcing for the proposed audit. As I say, it's quite a short report, perfunctory report outlining basically their intentions and their work plan for the forthcoming audit, and they'll report back to committee and board the outcomes of their findings in the autumn in their ISA 260 report. Happy to take questions, Chairman.
The only question I had, I think you've just answered in your last comment. I think things have slipped timetable-wise, haven't they? Obviously, because of the complications of COVID, but they're still on course to report in the autumn, are they, Jeff?
Correct. We in negotiations with Audit Wales, they've had to amend their timetable, because obviously Audit Wales are the appointed auditor for all public sector bodies in Wales, and they are juggling their internal resource to manage that workload. So I think their council authorities' timetables have slipped, and so they will start undertaking the audit of the pension funds accounts earlier than originally anticipated. I think, Karen, that's safe to say. So hopefully that we're well on target to report by the autumn as far as the pension funds accounts are concerned.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I've got no other questions. Is anybody indicating that they've got anything they'd like to ask or say about the report? I can't see anything. So on to the next item. Now my screen, which is the draft annual report and statement of accounts, Jeff.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, you know, existing members of the board are used to seeing this report on an annual basis. We're required to produce it by law and have it fully audited and published by the December following the balance sheet date. So in respect of year 21-22, we're required to have it audited and fully published by December of 22. So we're well on track to meet that deadline, subject to, as the chairman has pointed out, successful completion of the audit. It's a full 250 pages, as I say, of quite technical information and legally required information that we're required to publish within the annual report. I have no intention of going through it on a page by page basis, so I'll just signpost board members to certain important pages within the report and highlight some salient points. First of all, if I could ask the board to turn to page 15 of their pack, whereby we have the 3-year profile of statistics of the fund. And you can see on that page, on page 15, identifies key metrics for the financial years 2019-20 up until the end of the previous financial year, 21-22, the year in question. And that quite neatly bookends, you know, the two seismic events which have occurred during that period. At the beginning of that period, it was the onset of the global pandemic, the COVID-19 global pandemic, and then obviously 21-22 at the balance sheet date, March 22. You know, we're at the height of the Ukraine crisis and financial volatility that we're experiencing as a result of that, and the cost of living crisis, etc., etc. What I'm pleased to say is that during that 3-year period, you can see that the assets, net asset value at 31st of March, you can see they've grown by you know, a smidge shy of £1 billion on that line, where you can see net asset value at 31st of March. So the fund is now valued at just under £3 billion. I mean, quite a counterintuitive and staggering return for that 3 years in question, noting those quite global events that we're talking about, which bookend that period. Previously reported last year's incredible outsized return of 30+% for this fund, and this year similarly approximately returning 10+%, over £300 million worth of increase in value for this financial year. This is against the backdrop of implementing a net zero investment strategy, investing in that energy transition, investing responsibly, whilst adopting Swansea Pension Fund's responsible investment policies. So that achievement is not to be sniffed at, and I think the recent league tables which have been published indicate that out of the 89 local government pension schemes for 21-22, the fund ranked 12th out of those 89 in terms of investment returns for that year. But more pleasingly, for the 3 years that are outlined on page 15, over a 3-year period, and as I say, that 3-year period of heightened increased volatility, the fund was ranked second overall out of 89 local government pension schemes. So as we head into the triennial evaluation, 31st of March 2022 is an important date. It's a date which crystallises within the work of the appointed actuary to undertake their 2022 valuation. So that's an important date. So the fact that the fund is in such good health at that date augurs well as we move into the triennial valuation process ongoing at this time, which will be reported to Pension Fund Committee and Local Pension Board later this year provisionally, and then finally certificated at March 23. Key metrics which are contained within the report. I know we're slightly guilty of it at committee and board, focusing on investment matters and investment outcomes, but the whole reason the fund is in dealing with our members, paying members benefits, and from page 19 onwards is the section of the report which outlines how we dealt with those members, how we interacted with our members, how we performed in dealing with their requests and changes and personal circumstances, etc. As you can see from page 19 onwards, is now to report outlining some of that performance, and on page 23 we have the outcomes of customer service satisfaction. On the whole, it's very pleasing. However, as always in qualitative exercises such as this, it shows room for improvement, but overall a very strong endorsement of the work and of strong endorsement of the work of the admin team, but also reflects the satisfaction of the customers who we deal with. I mentioned as well that we're moving into the valuation cycle, and key to the effectiveness and satisfactory outcome of that valuation process is the probity of the data that we keep and how accurate that data is. So on page 27, you can see some reference to work that is ongoing in terms of common data that we held and scheme-specific data that we hold. And in an interim audit and an interim data quality check that we have with our service providers, you can see that running into the valuation cycle, you can see that we're moving in the right direction in terms of holding accurate information. Obviously, it's an ongoing process, and since that balance sheet date, it would have been cleansed again before handing over that data to the actuaries to undertake their calculations. Again, on that page 27, whilst we're on that page, the McLeod judgment that rumbles on. We're still looking for the effective practical remedy to be able to implement the outcome of the McLeod judgment. And again, I don't know, Chairman, if you're hearing noises off from your legal colleagues, but there are other legal challenges in other parts of the public sector pension schemes, which may have ramifications for the LGPS moving forward. On page, and then the real guts and you know, the real essence of the annual report and the financial statements, they actually start on page 94 of your pack, and that is the actual financial statements. Historically, when this document was produced, you know, it was about, you know, luckily you reached 20 pages, and it comprised largely of the pages that you see before you. The income and expenditure account, and then the net asset statement you can see on page 96 of your pack. Everything else within the document then is additional and has evolved over time, and has been required by regulators and administrators to be included in the annual report. But the financial statements, the key financial statements, are included on page 94, 95, and 96. And then the following pages are the notes to outline and clarify some of those numbers and included within those financial statements. As you can see on the page top of page 95, you can see the increase in fund value for the year. As I say, just over £300 million during the year. Not like last year, but as you say, still a very credible 10% return for the year, noting events in Ukraine at the end of the year. On the second half of page 95, then you can see outlined and summarised transactions dealing with our members and employers in terms of contributions received from our employers and members' contributions. But then also importantly, you can see there that we made pension benefits in the year totaling just under 90 million, and that's comprised of pensions payable and lump sum benefits. Again, I've previously referenced the increase in fund value during the year of 300 million, giving us a net closing assets figure for the fund of, as I say, just shy of £3 billion. A key note within the accounts that committee members and board members are quite keen on being reported to about are outlined on page 105 of your pack, and these are the admin and investment manager expenses for the year. And as you can see, the pension fund committee and the pension board expenses are relatively small because of the lack of training that you've been able to undertake because of lockdown rules. But as we move back out of lockdown now, there'll be more training events that perhaps board members and committee members will have to travel to attend. As we get back to some more normality, we'll hopefully see the expenditure on those two line items increase. Also, the advisors' fees, actuarial fees, you can see a market increase. That's as a result of obviously the increased work that we're doing in respect of net zero, more of which is later on the agenda. Developing those policies about responsible investing and environmental and social governance. Without the help of our consultants and the work they undertake on our behalf, we wouldn't be able to present cogent policies in respect of those two key items to committee and yourselves to consider. Hence the increase in advisors' fees there. If you pop over the page onto page 106, again, figures that those charged with governance are very interested in are the investment management expenses. Again, you know, you may be alarmed at the market increase in those figures. However, because they're a function and a percentage of assets under management, the fact that they are going up is counterintuitively quite reassuring, because it means the assets are increasing in value, and hence the investment management fees are increasing in value in line with them. However, I know the chairman is very keen in throwing a lens over those costs and challenging those costs and managing them as much as possible. And you know, the work that we're doing with WPP and working collectively and maximising those economies of scale as a collective of 8 pension funds rather than just one is definitely bearing fruit. Ongoing exercises, the private markets that we're going to touch on later on in the agenda are testament to that collective buying power. Again, just for your information, the increase in the transaction costs in year from 1.6 million to 3 million as a result of the material transitions which occurred during the year. And just conscious of saving my voice for the remainder of the agenda, I'm not intending to go through the rest of the document, but should any board members have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Jeff. I know David White has some questions.
Cheers, Jeffrey. Like you said, very comprehensive report. You know, and it's nice from my perspective, from Houston's perspective, the way I read the report, it's very nice to see the number of contributors to the pension fund has increased. You know, we always try to advocate to our members, get a pension, you know, and you know how well, you know, you are buying into the Swansea pension fund, because it is a good pension fund, you know, and you know, and the way it's managed, it's always, you know, it's well audited, it's well looked after, and you know, and it's fantastic to read such a good report. Now, this is not political, right? But I want to ask you a question, because some of the members asked me this, right? When they hear talk around COVID, and Gordon Brown's done it in the past, so I'm going to try and put a balance on this now, right? But in regards to, you hear talk of the government raiding, that's the word they use, raiding, the press use, our pension funds to pay for COVID. So has that happened, and what would be the likely outcome if that was to happen, or maybe it doesn't affect our pensions at all?
The LGPS is atypical, David, in the public sector, in that we are the only public sector scheme which are a funded scheme. In that, and what do I mean by that? I mean that as a funded scheme, there is a pot of money, a pile of assets that, in Swansea's case, that £3 billion that I referred to, that we are putting aside and managing to meet those not only current liabilities, i.e. pensioners who have pensions in payment at the moment, but our future liabilities, i.e. our current working members who won't retire for another 30, 35 years, etc. So we are funded in that regard. All the other public sector schemes that are referred to are unfunded. They do not have a pot of money to call upon, to raid, to fall back on. They are unfunded. So on that basis, I concur with you, David, that the LGPS is well managed, is the most efficient and effective of the public sector schemes because of that. But to your point about potentially not only this government and perhaps successive governments raiding or accessing that pot of money, it would take legislation to do so. Although notionally, as I say, it's a funded scheme, and notionally that's what that money is used for, in actual fact, the pension promises are underwritten by statute and are guaranteed. So presumably, were that to occur, the situation that you put forward, were that to occur, pension benefits would still be payable. However, they would become a lot more costly to the national public purse, in that they just go on to the national P&L rather than being funded from a funded scheme like ourselves. They would become another addition to the income and expenditure of UK PLC, like all the other public sector schemes. that we have like all the uniform schemes, civil service scheme, NHS. They're all unfunded schemes and are paid on an as-you-go basis.
Cheers, Jeff. A very comprehensive answer. And, it's reassuring to know that whatever was to happen, with our members, and we will still get their pension. Whether it comes from this pot or that pot, that's reassuring to hear that. And thank you for your answer.
Thank you, David. And before we move on and acknowledge the kind words about the report, and it was remiss of me not to mention that obviously the 250 pages that you see before me was compiled by Karen Cobb, my colleague sitting next to me here, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that Karen did in completing the annual report and financial statements, not only on time and gave it across to the auditors on time, but in very challenging and difficult circumstances. In that, it's a fast moving and changing landscape as we try and incorporate changes both internally and via WPP. So I'd like to put on record my thanks to Karen.
Yeah, I think I'd like. I don't wish to speak to the chair, but I'd like to note our thanks as well. And I'm sure the chair would agree with me. The hard work that goes into preparing this very comprehensive and very easy to read report as well. Like you said, it can be a report that it could be like go over your head, but it's very easily written. And thank you for that. And thank you, passing all the thanks to everybody involved.
Yes, I think perhaps as a board we'd like to thank everybody involved in producing the report, and to say that the new format combining the accounts is certainly a success from my perspective. Before I go on to ask my question, just elaborating on what David said, I think you're absolutely right that we need to be alert to any attacks on our pension. It seems to me the first indicator of that we often see floated in the press would be the extension of national insurance to pension income, and we often see that floated. That would be relatively easy legislatively for a government, I'll say, to implement. And obviously we've seen the extension in the rate of NI in recent months. I was very pleased to see the report, Karen and Jeff, both as to the performance on income and the performance in paying out the pensions. And I'm glad you were able to confirm my maths that some 90 million has been paid out in the year. I'm assuming, but I wonder if perhaps you or Karen can confirm, that the vast majority of pensioners in the fund actually continue to live fairly locally, so that there's a significant chance that a huge amount of that 90 million has found its way into as an injection into the local economy.
I would need to confirm. I can confirm that only a very handful live overseas, in that we only make a very handful of overseas payments. But in terms of UK geography, I would concur with your assertion that the majority of people live locally. However, I can't say wholeheartedly that 99% of those pensioners live within the environs of the city and county of Swansea. However, I would concur with that conjecture, Chairman.
Perhaps that is something in the future we perhaps need to make more of, as one of the perhaps hidden benefits of the pension fund is that wider benefit to the non-pensioner members of the Swansea, South Wales local community.
I would agree with you, Chair, and I never realised that. Never really thought like it, like you just said. But it does go to show, a vast majority of those funds are being spent in the local economy, in our shops, in our you know, and other traders supporting, you know, the town centres. And I think, you know, it never really occurred to me, to be honest with you, but it's a very, very valid point, and I think we should be selling that as well, you know, to local councillors and to traders, you know, how that the pension fund is supporting the local economy. I think is a very valid point, Chair.
Well, perhaps it's one. Yeah, thank you, Dave. Perhaps it's one for the future. Is there anything else anybody else would want to ask or say on this agenda item? I'm seeing no indications. So moving on to the next agenda item. And that's a standing item, our breaches report. And again, Jeff, I assume you're going to take this.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's that standing item on the agenda is breaches report that we receive quarterly. We're required to report breaches to those charged with governance. So for the benefit of Councillor Doyle and Noel, you know, it sounds worse than it is in terms of breaches. It's a breach in a technical term in that certain parameters and dates have been missed. Those dates and parameters are set out by statute and regulation. And if they are breached, we're required to report those breaches to those charged with governance. So what sorts of breaches are we talking about? You can see the breaches, well, the latest breaches that we're talking about on page 286. Sorry, they start on page 285, 286, and 287. So the breaches are in respect of not paying retirement lump sums within a month of normal retirement, not paying employers not paying their contributions within the required timescale, which is 19 days after month end. GDPR breaches, for example, where we've breached any data. I'm happy to say that we haven't made any GDPR breaches to date, and frozen refunds. This is where we have to make refunds as respect to unclaimed sums in respect of members during certain timescales. You can see on those pages the latest breaches that we're reporting there, and the reasons for it are, you know, well worn now in terms of, you know, whenever you have dealings with individuals, members, etc., there is a degree of dependence and reliance on their responsiveness and interaction with the fund to ensure timeliness of information exchange. That's in respect of retirement lump sums, etc. And then in respect of late contributions, I know this is one where committee members and board members have a lot of questions, and Karen and her colleagues have very helpfully included an additional table on page 288, whereby those late contributors for the latest period are broken down on page 288 there with that supplementary table, and as you can see, the sums involved are you know, trivial. To use an audit term, that's a technical term, trivial. It is an accepted audit term for sums which are almost they disregard them. And as you can see, a couple of our usual late payers who are persistently late in paying, but because of the, you know, small amount, £458 every month, we try our best to encourage them to pay on time. However, because of well-worn reasons why, you know, it's something we've almost come to accept. However, the next two, in terms of the small town council, on the 19th of April, it's a one-off late payment in respect of 11 contributors. This was as a result of staff turnover, a change in personnel, and you know, they hadn't had the requisite training to ensure that they got those pension contributions off on time. And similarly, the next one, I think it was in relation to some period of sick leave for the individual involved, and again, resulted in them paying their contributions late, but not a cause for concern. You know, they've been addressed. Hopefully those two incidents will not reoccur in the next financial quarter. Happy to take questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions regarding the breaches report? I can't see or indeed hear any indications. Jeff, without naming and shaming, the small town council that missed 3 months.
Yeah.
Are you able to indicate whether that's the same small town council as is featured in the breaches report in the past?
You're correct in that assumption, Chairman.
Okay, so a perennial problem then. Okay, I can't see any. David,
Going on what the chair just asked, do they offer any explanation why they're continuously late, or anything we can do to help to improve the timekeeping?
As indicated, David, they're a small town council, and they are, you know, the clerk, key holder, bottle washer, you know, head of HR. They do everything basically, and you know, it's just admin oversight month on month. I would suggest, despite encouragement from ourselves to implement a more regularized payment schedule, it still comes to us late. But just to assure all board members, these sums are late within the timescales identified by regulation. However, we do receive them outside of that schedule. So this contribution income is not lost, or it just happens to have be received outside of that 19-day window as identified by regulation.
Just from what you've said then, Jeff, it's the employer contributions that are late. The employee contributions are received. Is that correct?
It was a misspeak on my behalf. It was employer employees, because they remit it at the same time. It's the employee contributions are deducted from the employee's pay. The employer makes their contributions. They're both remitted to us in accordance with the payroll cycle traditionally.
Right, and there's two contributors. So presumably one of those is the employee responsible for sending the money across.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a long-standing issue with that town council, isn't it? I can't see any indications. No. So next item on the agenda is trustee training. Again, are you going to speak to this, Jeff?
Yes, Chairman. Your recognition in your voice probably betrays the fact that you think, why is this report coming before us again? Because you only received it in March. It was for the benefit of our two new members that we have on the local pension board, but also new members that we have on the pension fund committee. And I know I've spoken to those new members in the main about this on a one-to-one basis, and just to reinforce the importance of training, the legal requirement that you as board members and put your colleagues on the pension fund committee, they as committee members, the legal obligation that they have as individuals to ensure that they are appropriately skilled and trained and have the adequate knowledge to discharge their legal duties. And so I thought it opportune just to bring this report again for the benefit of the new members, just to say that officers are on hand to support them in their training needs. I know Karen has already reached out to the new members, identifying fundamental training as a starter, but just outlining, you know, the perhaps daunting amounts of training and ongoing personal development that they're required to undertake over their tenure as board members. But as I say, officers are at hand to try and make it as digestible and as easy as possible.
Yeah, but before I invite any questions, can I just endorse not only what you said about the importance of training, obviously, but to compliment the quality of training that's been arranged for us, whether that's through SIPFA, WPP. I don't think there's been a duff one yet. Can I invite any questions from the board? No. Just a plea then, Jeff, for dates to be circulated as soon as possible in order to maximise attendance once they're known.
Definitely, Chairman. I think Karen has already taken a straw poll of availability, because we're planning to have an in-house, i.e. we're getting the trainers down to Swansea to deliver something in early September. So I think she's sent out some possible dates for consideration, and so she was going to see, you know, the most common date for availability and lock it down for some joint training between yourselves and the committee.
Yes, and I think I've certainly received that. Hopefully it went out after the electoral cycle. And you remind me of an important point there, Jeff, which is not just the knowledge received at training, but particularly for joint training, it's the ability to speak to other board members from other funds across Wales, and indeed members of our committee in Swansea. That's an invaluable benefit as well. Anything else anybody wants to say on that before I change screens? And the next item is consideration of excluding the public. You'll see the reasons given in the papers. First of all, does anybody have any questions of the legal advisor as to the reasons given there for exclusion of the public? I certainly can't hear anybody, but I can't see anybody at the moment. Anybody indicating no? So if I could have a proposer to go into private session, please, and exclude the public.
I propose that the public are excluded.
Okay. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? No, so I take it that's everybody in favour.